Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has done a trip to India and been about in the media, where he's recently spoken to Reuters, who asked him about Ten Hag managing United, the new stadium, Ratcliffe's plan, but also the Rashford saga. And Ole has given some really interesting insight and comments on this, because I think it's really interesting to see what a former Man United manager has to say about these things now they're not at the club, hiding and saying things that they have to say when they give honest opinions. So we're going to dive right into Ole's interview, going through the Rashford bit, then the Takeover bit, then the Ten Hag bit, then sort of the struggles of managing a club like Manchester United, and have a talk about it. So please do hit the like button, and of course subscribe down below if you're new. Starting off with what he had to say on Rashford, he said, "It's not my job to discuss his performances, but last season he was fantastic, and it's about consistency in football. I'm sure he had a booster shot last week, and I hope that will stimulate him." He said, "Is it the manager's job to get the best out of him, or mostly himself, or any player's responsibility to get the best out of yourself? I think that's more it." And then he said, "Marcus and many others haven't hit the heights this season, and I'm sure he had a wake-up call last week, and hopefully that will spur him on." And I think that was some very fair, honest comments on Ole. First of all, he says, at the end of the day, we know how good Rashford can be because of what he did last season, but consistency. He speaks about the consistency and how Rashford needs to kick up and get back into form and be consistent. We know what he's capable of. 30 goals last season. He's not been delivering that this season. But the most interesting thing Ole was asked is it down to Ten Hag's Rashford's form, or is it down to Rashford? And I think there's always elements of managers can get the best out of players, but Ole said it's mostly on himself. Ole, as a manager, former manager of United, said it is mostly on himself. There's things Ten Hag can do to help. There's things the system and security around United can do to help, and not defending Rashford, but I do sometimes think one of the reasons behind Rashford's inconsistency in form is mostly sort of Rashford, but there are aspects of distractions that aren't entirely Rashford's fault, being in an unstable Man United environment where when things go wrong, everyone goes on him before anyone else to an extent. But overall, I think Ole's right. Rashford needs to get the best out of himself. If he's not in good form and he's going out partying and he's doing this and he's doing that, he's not going to help himself. I think a manager can always help situations. We see Ange come in, and Pedro Porro's a new player at Spurs and he wasn't very good on a Conte, and managers can help, and managers can change environments which can help. And I sometimes think that certain United players can get dragged down by the environment of United, and I think that could be a case of Rashford. But Ole very much says with Rashford, he's got to get the best out of himself, and I think Ole's true. And Ole said, you've got to remember, it's not just Rashford that hasn't hit the heights this season. So there's a lot of players that underperform this season, not Rashford. And I do think Rashford gets a lot of the heat, but I do think the Belfast situation, the lying, you understand to an extent why he's going to have a lot more pressure on him. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting how Ole said, look, we know Rashford's a good player. He hasn't hit his heights this season. It's not just Rashford that hasn't hit the heights, but this is partly Rashford's responsibility to get the best out of himself. And I think Ole's absolutely spot on. Rashford's had that warning. He's had that Belfast situation. He now needs to crack down, work super hard, get into form, and try and enjoy playing for United again. Because I look at Rashford and I don't think he's enjoying his football. And I want him to enjoy his football. I want him to be back to the best Rashford, and I want him to be helping the club. And I think hopefully this Belfast situation gives him a kick on and he can find his form again. Ole then spoke about the takeover. These were interesting things that Ole said on the takeover. He said, it's very exciting times with Jim Ratcliffe. I think it has breathed belief into both fans and supporters, but we need consistency. You can see even the better teams are not as consistent as they were. He said as well, on the new stadium, we have to move with the times, and at the moment something has to happen. It's either renovation or a new stadium, because we're falling behind if we're staying in the same place we have. It's going to divide fans for sure, because history is very important, but we traded the Cliff, which was iconic for United, and the Busby Babes with Carrington, and it looks like we might have a new build stadium, says Ole. So again, interesting points from Ole. He's saying, first of all, United need to move with the times, and he's absolutely spot on. I think, the heritage and the history of the stadium is one that would be hard to let go of, but we need to make sure that we can compete with the other teams in the Premier League when it comes to stadium facilities, because we're the biggest club in England and we have massively fallen behind. And then Ole said on the takeover, he said it's exciting, it's put some belief into both fans, but we need consistency. And I think with the takeover, I wanted the full sale. I'm very disappointed we didn't get the full sale, but I'm willing to give a bit of patience and try and be positive with Ratcliffe, because he's bringing Omar Barada and give him the benefit of the doubt. But at the end of the day, I think with Ratcliffe, actions will speak louder than words. Will we see consistency in his actions? Will we see the right actions be made? And maybe Ole has that stance. Going into some other comments Ole made, Ole spoke about Ten Hag, and he said on Erik Ten Hag, I know exactly what he's going through in the good times and the hard times. We want to get back to the top, and I hope it will be Erik. So very nice comments from Ole. And I think I look at Ten Hag, and I've said this myself, it is the hardest job. Managing United is the hardest managerial job. Because not only have you got to work with glazers and the incompetence at the top that don't back you, you go into a toxic culture which is created by those at the top, not listened to, ignored. You don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what the budget is. You then have players that mess about. He's had to deal with Anthony Greenwood's situation, Ronaldo interview, even just general issues with players like Sancho throughout the time. All those issues with players, you know, the leaks were crazy. They're not as bad, but when Ratcliffe was here, the leaks were crazy. He's had to deal with incompetent board, crazy leaks, awful owners, this whole takeover looming, and obviously the media pressure. He lost his first 2 games of the season as Sky Sports sat Erik Ten Hag down, and they were like going in on him. Poch hasn't got that treatment yet. The media pressure on Erik Ten Hag, as soon as Erik Ten Hag starts losing, the media's talk about how bad he is, how bad he is, how bad he is. Not about the fact that he overachieved last season, he's still got a really high win rate. Not the fact that everyone's injured. When it's other clubs, they've got an injury crisis. When it's Man United, it's Ten Hag's not good enough. Because the media crash on you when you're at United. And Ten Hag knows that. He even made comments to the media saying, I know you like it when we fail. I know you like writing stories when we fail, because the media thrive off negativity around United. And I think Ole will know that. And I think hopefully Ten Hag succeeds, because there's going to be good times, there's going to be hard times. And hopefully Erik's given the opportunity to see if he can pull through these hard times and see what he does, because I'd love to see what Erik Ten Hag does with proper board, proper backing. We can get the right people around him, because if the right people around him at Ajax, he did a good job. And I think if you put the right people around Ten Hag at United, he can definitely do a good job. In terms of other things Ten Hag said, he said, not Ten Hag, Ole said, he said this. He said, managing United is the best job in the world. You always want to manage against the best football people in the world. The Premier League is the best league in the world, the most difficult. I've been there for 3 years. Yes, it's a hard job. It's an extraordinary job, but you're the face of the biggest club in the world. You have to be ready all the time to be scrutinised. So I enjoy it, and I needed a break after I stepped away. And again, Ole's saying, the reason he hasn't gone back into management is because after finishing United, he needed a break, and I can understand that. I mean, there's always that joke, managers that before and after they come to United, it feels like they age like 10 years and 3 years, but it's a stressful job. He's under the most intense media pressure. And while I think Ole ultimately had to go, we did realise once Ole left that he wasn't as big a problem as maybe we thought at the time. And I think Ole leaving woke a lot of fans up to the fact that actually Ole wasn't the problem at this club, because there were so many issues after Ole left. It's so many issues here with Ten Hag, here with Rangnick, that actually it should have been those around Ole that had gone first. I think a lot of fans learnt that, and Ole obviously took a break because it's a demanding job, and he says that United's the most demanding job in the world. But he says, with managing United, you've got to be ready to be scrutinised all the time. And I think managing United, and this is with the Graham Potter links as well, is managing United is going to be very different to managing any other Premier League club, in the sense of, or like just a small Premier League club. Going from a small Premier League club to a big Premier League club's going to be so different, because you've got to be able to deal with the scrutiny, the media scrutiny. The players will read the media scrutiny, and that could even potentially influence players on turning on the manager. And that's why I think that managers like Graham Potter struggled at Chelsea and would really struggle at United, even though I think Graham Potter's a good manager, and it would be unfair to judge him for what he did at Chelsea because he did so well at Brighton. I always think, would he be able to deal with the media scrutiny? And Ole sort of pointed out that actually when you're at United, you've got to be ready to be scrutinised all the time. You've got to realise that this is a hard job, it's an extraordinary job, the world is on you, and the media is going to be on you. And I think he's absolutely right. So yeah, that was just me talking about Ole's interview and some points he made. I think the point that, it's mostly on Rashford to get the best out of himself, not Ten Hag, is true. I think the point that Manchester United is falling behind, they need to upgrade, is true. The point that Ten Hag should be given time is true. And the point that the job is hard and there's a lot of media scrutiny is true. Let me know your thoughts down below. I will be back with a news update video later if any interesting news comes out. Potentially a live stream, depending on what I'm doing. See you next time. Bye.